Do you know what gets me excited? The Cowboys have it tough to beat the Steelers, but the Steelers also have it pretty tough to beat the Cowboys. This is going to be a hard-fought game. Let's talk about it. What is up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central and catching up with you Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. But tonight we get to talk about the Cowboys going to Pittsburgh and facing a 3-1 squad that, hey, they're quietly a pretty decent team. Now, we've talked a lot about the Cowboys' injuries. We talked a lot about Micah Parsons potentially being out. And when I say potentially, I mean very, very likely to be out. DeMarcus Lawrence headed to IR. Daron Land not looking like he's going to be activated for this game. Now Kellen Carson is still on the injury report. And according to Mike McCarthy, a coin flip regarding his game status for Sunday. Today, Trevon Diggs got added to the injury report. Limited participant with an ankle injury. So the Cowboys are pretty banged up. But the Steelers, now they've got their center, right guard, right tackle, all on season-ending. They all suffered season-ending injuries. They might get a left guard back in Isaac Seumalo, but they also have Jaylen Warren injured at running back. There's also question marks about Alex Highsmith's replacement, who is also injured and not likely to play, also dealing with an injury. So there's a lot going on ahead of this game. So what I like is seeing Mike Tomlin and Mike McCarthy go at it in a game where they both are going to have to be creative. Now, I think for the Cowboys, the desperation is much bigger, right? Because you are 2-2, the Steelers are 3-1. They're playing with the house's money because they were not really expected to be the front runner of the AFC North this early in the season or later in the season. But the Cowboys, they're the ones who are a little bit on the underwhelming side of things, right? 2-2 with maybe one loss that we didn't see coming versus the New Orleans Saints. Two of their losses have been very catastrophic, with both the Ravens and the Saints just steaming past them. And they're the ones who are a little bit more desperate because they're the ones looking up at the schedule and seeing that they've got the Detroit Lions up next, and followed by that, a much-needed bye week. But then the San Francisco 49ers, once again, in the Bay. So it's going to be a pretty cool game, I think, in that sense. We're going to see two teams that are going to be battling it out. They're going to be desperate for that win. So, yeah, man, I'm happy to be here, happy to be talking about it. Welcome, everyone, into the show. Shout out to Toxic Lamp. We've got a Gregory in there. Who else do we have here? We've got Cam. What was Steelers 2-2? No, Steelers are 3-1, actually. 3-1. Only loss happened versus the Indianapolis Colts last week. And it was a close one, even. Because they got in a hole early on, and it was very comparable to the Ravens game, just in the sense that they fought back late in the game. Came up short, though. And they could have won that game. They could still be undefeated. George Pickens had a fumble near the end zone earlier in the game. And then you saw Justin Fields made a mistake or two, but overall played a pretty decent game. So again, man, this is going to be a fun game, and we're going to talk about it right now. Pretty quick injury roundup from my part. The Steelers, Jaylen Warren, running back, has not practiced this week, and that matters. The Steelers are 29th in rush EPA per play, and although they do have Najee Harris, he has not been good, man. And I don't know if the Steelers, if they're trying to figure out what the running game looks like, just like the Cowboys, but they have a lot of issues. Warren, again, has been injured. Harris has been inconsistent. And now you're dealing with an offensive line that has new starters at center, right guard, and right tackle. You're just bound to look off, honestly. So that is going on for them. On the defensive side of the ball, I've talked about Alex Highsmith being a likely player to be out for this game. That is massive in this game. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But defensive tackle, Larry Ogunjobi, also limited participant today in practice, so also on the injury report. They've got Nick Hervik, who is Highsmith's replacement, also banged up. And he's been important. You watch the Steelers play, Hervik shows up on film. He shows up on the stat sheet. He's been pretty productive for the Steelers. If he cannot go on Sunday, that is a very favorable situation for your left tackle, Tyler Guyton, on Sunday. Hervik was upgraded from non-participant to limited on Thursday, so that was pretty significant. A name to keep an eye out for on Friday for the final injury report. Now, on the Cowboys side of things, we know about Parsons. We know about D-Law. We know about Carson being like this coin flip, because according to Mike McCarthy, he's not leaning either way, which I'm not buying. I'm guessing the Cowboys coaching staff does have an idea as to what will happen. But Trevon Diggs unexpectedly got added to the injury report today. Limited participant with an ankle injury. It is safe to say that if Trevon Diggs cannot go on Sunday night, holy smokes, I don't know who's topping George Pickens. Because George Pickens is playing good football. He's a very good contested catcher. He can run routes. He can be a vertical threat. And we saw what the defense looked like with Armani, the practice squad cornerback, and with Andrew Booth Jr. So I don't want to see that at all, right? Trevon Diggs hopefully is fine, and hopefully it was just a little ankle issue that it can get fixed up quickly, because the Cowboys absolutely need Trevon Diggs on that field. But tonight, we'll start with the offensive side of things, because as I said, a lot of injuries for the Steelers on the defensive front, but they're still pretty decent, right? They've got TJ Watt, who is of major concern going into this one, and I think the story of the game when the Cowboys are on offense. Because more specifically, here's what I think. I think the Cowboys should not run the ball versus the Steelers. I think they shouldn't even try to do it. Obviously, you're not going to go a full game without attempts, but here's what I mean. The Steelers have the third best rush defense in the NFL. And it's not only TJ Watt, it's their linebackers, it's Ogunjobi, it's Cam Hayward. This is a pretty damn good unit. And let's face it, the Cowboys cannot run the ball. They had a long week, right? Because they played on Thursday, had a full weekend plus their week to prepare. I don't think the Cowboys coaching staff figured out the run game just because they had a long week, because this is an issue that dates back to the 2023 season. I really don't want to see the Cowboys try to establish the run, right? Obviously, you need some attempts here and there. I understand that, right? Football theory. You need the defensive line to keep checking for the run in order to deter the pass rush and all that. I understand that. But why would you try to establish the run, which isn't even a real thing, versus the Steelers front that is just going to kill you when you try to attempt it? You're trying to tell me that they're going to solve it because they had a long week after we are seeing the same issues that popped up last year? And never mind that you have a worse running back room that has not gotten going at all. You're the least explosive rushing offense in the entire NFL, which we've talked about here on the show. Your longest rush attempt belongs to CeeDee Lamb at 12 yards, and you want to run against this team? I really don't want to see it. I really do not want to see it. I like Cooper Beebe. Hopefully, he keeps improving. I'm not sure he's going to sustain those blocks against Hayward, against Ogunjobi, against this Steelers defensive line. I know Terrence Steele sometimes flashes in the run game. Against TJ Watt, though, I'm not interested. Not at all. So, however, even though the Steelers also rank pretty well as a pass defense, they're the 10th best pass defense in the NFL. Here is the quarterbacks that they've faced. Kirk Cousins in week 1. That is not the same Kirk Cousins when watching recently. That was a Kirk Cousins that was not moving after that Achilles injury. I don't know if he was nervous. I don't know if the game plan just absolutely sucked from the Falcons. But he was not moving. He was basically receiving the snap, just standing still before tossing the football away. Then they faced Bo Nix. Second career game ever. Then they faced Justin Herbert for a half, banged up Justin Herbert, by the way, who re-injured his ankle in that same game and was later replaced by Easton Stick. And then last Sunday, They were getting decimated by the Anthony Richardson-led offense, got injured, Joe Flacco came in, and then they were decimated by Joe Flacco. Joey Porter Jr., starting cornerback, was being consistently challenged. The entire secondary was, really. The linebackers, middle of the field, they were getting destroyed. This could be a big game for Jake Ferguson, by the way. I think if the Cowboys really want to attack that second-level zone of the defense, that's where I think the money could be. Try to get CD on that slot. Try to get Jake Ferguson working the seam, and I think the Cowboys might get some good results there. Now, they are a dangerous defense, obviously, for several reasons. Staying with the secondary for a bit, Minkah Fitzpatrick is back to his Troy Polamalu-esque kind of assignment where they just let him do his thing, right? They're letting Minkah Fitzpatrick play from a deep zone and then suddenly get underneath and be a robber while almost improvising and baiting quarterbacks. And he's been very successful with that. I could see that being successful versus the Cowboys offense as is right now with the way they're not using motion and all that. Oh, man, there go the Bucks. Oh, man. All right, sorry. Back to the program. I could see Minkah Fitzpatrick dealing some damage like that. And then in the pass rush department, TJ Watt is beating Steele on one-on-one looks. That is just happening. We have to accept that it is happening. And Tyler Guyton, no matter who's playing across of him, since he's a first-round rookie that is considered a raw player still, you got to assume the Cowboys are going to have to send some help his way, which is, again, the story of the game for me. How do you handle the pass pro in this game? Because I think the Cowboys receivers, even without Brandon Cooks and Jake Ferguson, they could deal some damage against this secondary. The question for me is Dak going to have time to make that happen? Dak has the fifth, fastest time to throw in the NFL this year, which I'm assuming has a lot to do with the way that their pass protection is holding up. But I think the big question mark that Mike McCarthy, Brian Schottenheimer, Mike Solari all need to answer is, are we going to have to help Tyler Guyton out? Because Terrence Steele is going to need help. Absolutely. Versus TJ Watt, you better find a way to help Terrence Steele. TJ Watt, fortunately for you, does not move around that much. Not like Garrett, not like Parsons. He basically just stays on whoever the right tackle is and destroys offenses from there. So you could come up with a game plan and help Terrence Steele out with the running back, with the tight end. Maybe you can move the pocket away from TJ Watt. And I'm going to hand it to the Cowboys. They have been creative coming up with solutions for their pass pro woes. Russell, for example, says in the chat, hey, leave Ezekiel Elliott in there a lot and let him block. Now, that could be Zeke. It also could be Hunter Lipke, who they're trusting a lot in these situations. But when you have one tackle that you need to help out in pass pro, you can survive with it, right? The Cowboys could survive TJ Watt if they can help Terrence Steele out consistently. But when you got to help out the other guy as well, when you got to help both of your tackles, and the Cowboys have two of the worst tackles as far as percentage of responsibility for the team, the pressures the team has allowed, both tackles are one of the worst in the NFL because both have been pressured a whole lot this season. Do the Cowboys have to decide, do they need to help Tyler Guyton out? Now, I do think that this is the least challenging matchup that Tyler Guyton has seen so far in the NFL. Because Alex Highsmith is not playing. And Alex Highsmith, pretty good football player. Oh, underrated even because of the shadow of TJ Watt, I would say. But Alex Highsmith is not going to suit up likely for this game. He hasn't practiced, and the expectation from Steelers media is that he won't go on Sunday night. It would be a major surprise. Nick Herbig has been decent, but he's going to be banged up. Guyton has faced Myles Garrett. He has faced Chase Young and Jordan. He has faced Odafe Owe. He has faced Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. This is an easier matchup for him. Now, as Cam says here, Guyton does need help. That might still be the case, even if it's the easiest matchup. The Cowboys are going to have to decide who are we helping out the most. And I got to tell you, I think the answer is absolutely Terrence Steele. If not for Steele, because of who he's facing. And that's TJ Watt. And that's who the Cowboys are going to have to deal with first and foremost. How much they help Tyler Guyton as well will be the question for me. It's important that they trust Guyton, in my opinion, at least a little bit to handle things. You got to trust the guy, because otherwise it's just going to cost you so much manufacturing the explosive plays that you need to manufacture in the passing game, because they're not going to come otherwise, right? They're not going to come through the running game. It's got to be through the passing game. And if I'm wasting 2 potential targets on helping out my tackles every single time, it's just not going to work out. I like the sprint outs. I really do, for example. But what the sprint outs is that they basically remove targets from your passing game. We have seen the Cowboys run 7-man protections, 8-man protections. We have seen them do all that. But then there's only one guy running a legitimate route, or 2 guys. One from the backside where Dak has to throw across his body to get to the second option, right? The Cowboys got to find a way to decide they trust Tyler Guyton on this game, and they're going to help mostly Terrence Steele, and they got to give Dak Prescott some time to cook. Because let me tell you something, this game, I think Dak Prescott needs to have an MVP type game to beat the Steelers. Because again, we'll get to the defense in a little bit, but you know the situation is bad already. The defense is going to be in a bad spot, no matter who the rival is right now. You're not going to run against this Steelers defense. Not sure how much the play calling is going to change passing game-wise from one week to another, because the Cowboys absolutely need to implement some changes. We need to see some more motion. But the Cowboys, they're going to have to give Dak Prescott some decent protection for him to get going against a vulnerable Steelers passing defense. Despite what the numbers say, I think they are vulnerable in that sense. Now, the question also is, from the Dak Prescott point of view, how does he get this passing game going? Because I see several avenues for this. One of them is the CD show, right? What we saw in the first half versus the Giants, just get CeeDee Lamb going and feed him a whole lot, right? 10-plus target type game for CeeDee Lamb. Could happen, right? So far, though, they're not targeting him that much. Target rate, he ranks 39th in the NFL, which I thought was pretty wild when I came across that number. The other possibility, and you might tell me in the chat what do you think is best, the other possibility is end of the Ravens game where Dak went crazy and he was like, Kevontae Turpin, you get the ball. Jalen Tolbert, you get the ball. Jalen Brooks, sure, why not? Jake Ferguson over the middle of the field. Get it. CeeDee Lamb also as well. Get the football, right? And that was cooking everywhere. Big Jalen Tolbert game, right? Along those lines, big Jalen Tolbert game. Because he's just going to be on the field. Now it's guaranteed. Brandon Cooks is not playing. You need Tolbert to show up. Promising sign. Obviously not a lot of targets, but enough for him to qualify among the filters for PFF. 11th best passer rating when targeted in the entire NFL. 11th best. Now, safe to assume that the more he is targeted, that number will go down, probably. But so far, when he has been targeted, there's some good stuff in there. But for Jalen Tolbert, there's a lot going on, and he's got to start with being disciplined and then just showing up for his QB. There's been a lot of situations where Dak has gone to him in contested situations, and Tolbert has won those reps. That is an upgrade over, for example, the Michael Gallup life, to be fair. At the end of it, because at one point he was pretty damn good at it. Now, though, I think you would much rather have Jalen Tolbert in that sense. But it's going to be a big Jalen Tolbert game. It's going to be a big Jake Ferguson game, and hopefully a big CD game. Cam says, I will say Tolbert will bring his A game. He's going to need it. For sure, he's going to need it. I would like to see some more looks for Tolbert where it's not hard, where it's not a 50-50 ball in a curl route or something like that, which I'm not doubting he can win. But I just want to see Jalen Tolbert be used in a more versatile way, if you will. And hopefully we get some of that, because I think that's been lacking. One of Tolbert's touchdowns so far though, he was wide open, right? It was a little bit of a, not a double move, but it was one of those plays where you could see him be schemed open. Obviously, one more of that. It was kind of like a Caesars concept, wasn't it? Where he had somebody go from the inside to the outside, and then he broke to the inside of the end zone, and then Dak Prescott found him with a lot of separation. So hopefully we get some more of those style of looks for Jalen Tolbert. I am assuming it's not going to be enough, though. I am assuming Dak is going to have to spread the ball around a lot. So also a game where you want to see Cavante Turpin and all that. And okay, we'll do it. We'll talk about the guy you want to talk about. Ryan Flournoy, looking like he'll get the call, looking like he'll be active for the first time ever on Sunday. How much is he going to be involved? Fair to assume, maybe not a lot. Right? Hate to throw a bucket of cold water into this conversation. I want to see Flournoy. I believe in Flournoy. I think he's got this interesting potential as an X receiver with the size and the speed and everything that he showed us in the preseason. But just based on how they feel about him, clearly they feel he's below the Jalens, below Cavante, right? Because otherwise we would have already seen Flournoy in the first place. But it's going to be fun that he's going to be available, looks like, and it's going to be fun if he gets some reps, actual reps, offensive wise, in when the game starts, right? Richard says, "What's up, brother? We need this win. Promote that tight end off of the practice squad." Are we talking about Princeton Fant, or who are we talking about? Who am I missing from the practice squad right now? But hey, I'll check. Richard, you might be onto something. I think you're talking about Princeton Fant. From what I remember, there is not another tight end. Yeah, it's got to be Fant. Or John Stephens. Actually, John Stephens is interesting, Richard, because John Stephens is on the 53-man roster. And I was surprised by the fact that he was not activated last Thursday Night Football, because he was a full participant on practice. And then still, Brevin Spanford got the call. Not the call, 'cause that sounds like promoting him. He was a healthy tight end or the active tight end, while Stephens was basically a healthy scratch. I would love to see John Stephens on this game. Shout out to Richard. That is a very good point. I would love to see John Stephens on this game. Just have him active over Brevin Spanford. I think it doesn't make sense if he's healthy for him to be inactive. Maybe it was because of the short week. We don't know. We'll see, though. We'll see on Sunday night if it's John Stephens' season. That is true. Had forgotten about John Stephens myself. I had forgotten about that. Cam says Ryan Flournoy struggles on his routes. I think this was about Ryan Flournoy. And, he's a late-round rookie. It's going to take some time for him. But I would like to see some of that Ryan Flournoy action on Sunday night for sure. Now, if we turn the page a little bit and we talk about... I was going to say one more thing, though, about the practice squad, since it came up. No Dalvin Cook this week, it sounds like, and it just makes sense. You're going to have to elevate the corner again, it seems like. If Kalen Carson plays, maybe not, but you might still have to elevate him. And then you're going to have to elevate Carl Lawson. You're going to be forced to do it, even if you don't want to. It's going to have to be Carl Lawson being called up for the last time this season, because then he'll have to be signed to the 53-man roster. So I don't think there's going to be space for Princeton Fant or Dalvin Cook or anyone like that to be elevated from the squad. So expect the regular names that we've been seeing so far. Moving on a little bit here on the show. Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball now. Man, these Steelers offensive line, is just banged up. It's bad. And I think I think the Cowboys are in a bad spot talent-wise, but how much of that is negated by the fact that the Steelers are also extremely banged up? I think it's a fair question. I think it's a pretty difficult one to answer. The thing that concerns me, though, is that I feel that through 4 weeks of the season, the one consistent duo of players that we have seen so far were the two defensive ends that are not playing on Sunday night. It was DeMarcus Lawrence and it was Micah Parsons. Now, I'm not saying they were perfect. Not at all. I'm not saying any of that. But I've seen games where the defensive tackles were garbage. I've seen games where the linebackers were garbage, right? With all due respect to even someone like DeMarvion Overshown, who we are very, very excited about. There was that one game versus the Ravens where he couldn't tackle anybody. Eric Kendricks has had multiple missed tackles this season that are just ugly. Wilson has had some bad moments at safety. Even Malik Hooker, right? Even the cornerbacks, even Trevon Diggs has looked a little bit rough on film here and there. He was the guy Lamar Jackson went to at the end of that week 3 loss to the Ravens. Daniel Jones was not afraid to go to Diggs versus Malik Neighbors in week 5 in a 4th and down that was key, and he moved the chains, right? So we've seen pretty much everyone be inconsistent other than the defensive ends. If we're being real, we might not like what it looks like because we might not be a fan of breaking down the film, checking if Mike Parsons did set the edge or not to determine if he had a good game or not. But it's been happening so far. You remove those two from the equation, and you ask yourself what Richard is asking himself in the Facebook comments: who the heck is playing defensive end? And here is your answer. Marshawn Neiland, second-round rookie, and I'm guessing Chauncey Golston is going to be starting on the opposite side. Chauncey Golston is not exactly the biggest defensive end. And if it's not him, it's going to be this rotation of KJ Henry, who they just signed, and then Carl Lawson from the practice squad. I'm not sure if Tyrese Wett is going to be active or not for this one, but he's also a part of that conversation. I'm guessing he's going to be active. This becomes a very complicated situation to be in because I'm not sure you have the talent to really replace either Parsons or Lawrence, let alone the two of them. And that was the one thing that he had going for you. Now, what could happen in this game? And I talked about this last night, but I'll go over it again today. Mike Zimmer has to go crazy on this one. Mike Zimmer has to look at his defensive line and be like, I'm not sure this is going to do. I'm not sure this is going to be a spot where the Cowboys defensive line can get some pressures in. I'm going to have to manufacture it. How do I do that? Blitzing like crazy. Mike Tomlin himself talked about this earlier in the week when he was like, hey, he's the godfather of the double-A gap pressures. He's going to heat it up. He's going to heat this thing up, and he's going to be sending schematic pressures. What does that look like for the Cowboys? Probably blitzing the linebackers a whole lot. Probably is DeMarvion Overshown. He's going to be a part of this big game plan that Mike Zimmer cooks up. But you're going to have to do something. Now, there's the downside to blitzing, which is obviously holes in the back end of the defense in coverage, but also against a running quarterback, there's going to be some lanes that are going to pop open, and we're going to see Justin Fields get those rushing yards in my opinion. But I think the Cowboys have to go into this one even thinking that they're going to break the running game from the Steelers through blitzing as well. I'm talking about a 70% blitz rate type game is what I would assume is going to happen on Sunday Night Football. Now, one thing to watch is how did the Steelers respond to that? Because when the Steelers have faced the blitz this year, Justin Fields pretty much just checks it down. He's averaging 3-point yards in, average depth of target when he faces the blitz. That is the lowest in the entire NFL. He's not taking shots. Opposite of what Jordan Love, for example, did versus the Vikings against Brian Flores. He was being blitzed like crazy. The Packers were going nowhere. Later in the game, though, they wake up because Jordan Love starts just challenging coverage downfield and throwing it around like crazy, and it worked for him a little bit. Obviously, the game was rough at the beginning, so it wasn't enough. Packers did get close, though, to the Vikings, and that was a big reason why. It wasn't necessarily that the Vikings were playing prevent defense or anything like that. The Packers did get pretty close. I think the way is to blitz Justin Fields, man. Just force him to face the blitz. Force him to make you respect him, in other words. And I'm not sure it's going to happen because I'm not sure Justin Fields has ever been that guy at QB that can really make you pay for it when you blitz him. I think that is the way to go. Richard says, put Overshown in Parsons' role. Man, that would be crazy, wouldn't it? And you know, it's a little bit different because Micah did play the position at college, but that's how Parsons got it going as an edge rusher. He was a rookie. Cowboys were very banged up at defensive end. They were moving him around here and there. But then they needed Micah to just play defensive end, and that's when they figured out this guy is a beast. We cannot move him again. But it was different because Micah played linebacker and defensive line in college, while Overshown is a former safety, right? But he will have to blitz. Albert says we should blitz early to put that fear in him. Yeah, and not only in him, which is one of the things that I wanted to talk about. Not only in him, but on the rookie center, Zach Fraser, who is handling declarations. He has to, you know, the biggest way you deal with the blitz in the NFL is communication up front. You've got 3 guys that were not your original starters on that offensive line. With the center, with the right guard, and the right tackle, that is a very vulnerable cluster of injuries that the Steelers are dealing with that the Cowboys might just want to overload like crazy and keep them on their toes all game long. So who wins? Who wins? Let me know in the chat, man. These are my thoughts. Obviously, there's so many matchups that we could also talk about. Trevon Diggs versus George Pickens. Listen, I'm not going to bet on Mike Zimmer having Diggs shadow George Pickens for several reasons. I think the Cowboys are not playing enough man coverage to do that. I think Mike Zimmer showed us that he doesn't want his cornerback shadowing the top guy for the most part, because we've already seen this team go up against Amari Cooper, Malik Neighbors, and now it's George Pickens. I don't think he's going to shadow him, but within the realms of possibility, I'm guessing as much as they can, they're going to try to get Diggs on Pickens. That's a big-time matchup there to be worried about. Other than that, obviously, man, there is some speed with that Steelers offense, right? Calvin Austin. There's that. Hopefully the Cowboys find the way. Let me know in the comments, what is your prediction for this game? Gregory says Cowboys 17, Steelers 14. You know, I've suffered to make this call, and you know me, when I think the Cowboys are going to lose, I give my prediction against the Cowboys, even though we were rooting for them. Did that versus the Ravens, for example. I'm going to trust Dallas, though. This is a very close game. Both teams are very banked up. Man, I'm going to go with the best QB. I'm going to go with the QB that I could see realistically going full MVP mode, and that is Dak Prescott. Give me the Cowboys by a very thin margin, but give me Dallas. I'm going to say 26-24. That is the kind of game that I think we're going to see on Sunday Night Football. Hopefully it is a good one. And by the way, make sure you check that out. The pregame show, halftime show, postgame show here at A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. And check out atozsports.com/Dallas for our post-game content. Isidro says 24-10. There you go. Albert says Cowboys by 10 or more. It is on Prescott. Prescott told reporters today that he doesn't want to be Superman. Honestly, he might, man. He might have to be Superman. Holly, shout out to you. Thank you for joining us. However, the show is ending. However, we are about to say goodbye. Hit the like button for me if you enjoyed the show. Thank you so much. 33-10, says Holly. He comes in clutch with the score prediction before we leave. Big prediction, by the way. But anyways, shout out to you all. Enjoy your weekend. See you on Monday, because I don't see you on Sunday because we've got the live show for the games. And yeah, enjoy the weekend. Bye-bye.